Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer, I'm a professional, not your professional. Nothing I'm about to say should be taken as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. Disclaimer over. So today I thought I'd talk about what I don't know about religious trauma. And I can start off by saying I definitely don't know that much about religion. I'm not a religious person. So I wanted to define a few of the terms that I'll be using to talk about today, and then I'll move into some examples of religious trauma, and finally a bit about questions you can consider about cults. So that isn't to say, excuse me, that isn't to say that religion doesn't have its positive aspects. It absolutely does. But in this case, we're going to look at some of the more detrimental effects that some religious practices can have. So religion is going to be defined as I use it today as a particular system of faith and worship. And that's not of any particular god or gods, just a system of faith and worship. And trauma is defined as any type of distressing event or experience that can have an impact on a person's ability to cope and function. And then I wanted to give you the definition of a cult. A cult is a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So that can be a figure or object that that's directed at. And I realize that veneration is a rather big, weird word. So all it means is great respect. So a cult is a system of religious great respect and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So that's it for the definitions. Next up, examples of religious trauma. It might be helpful to note that religious trauma can happen anywhere in the world, does not matter which religion. And here are some examples. The first is spiritual abuse. This occurs when religious leader or leaders or religious system tries to control, manipulate, and degrade you. Another example is sexual and physical abuse. There's also emotional abuse, being told that you are sinful and going to hell. Another is experiencing shame or being told you're not worthy of love due to your thoughts or beliefs. Everybody's worthy of love, okay. Fear of expressing yourself or showing your thoughts. Forced to follow your community's rules and expectations. Marginalization due to your gender or sexuality, the use of scripture to justify abuse or injustice, and not feeling free to leave your faith. A final example of religious trauma includes involvement in a cult. So if you suspect that you're in a cult, or if you have a loved one that you think is in a cult, here are a few questions that you can consider. Do you sense that you're in danger, possibly physical danger, or danger of slander and or destroyed reputation? Another question is, are you being forced to pay money to obtain spiritual enlightenment? Is there information that causes you to advance in your spirituality that is not publicly or freely available? Are you being shamed or punished for questioning beliefs or having different opinions? Another question is, are you permitted to think for yourself and contribute ideas? Or are there only a few chosen individuals who hold the power and information you need to become enlightened? Another question is, are you being ranked? Are you being told that you're less valuable than another person for various reasons around the belief system? And lastly, is diversity accepted? Diversity of identity, thought, or opinion. So if you answered yes to any of those questions, you might consider talking to somebody about your situation. It may not be safe to immediately leave a cult. So if your loved one is in this situation, please don't make a hasty decision. Go ahead and consult with a local professional who can help you strategize on how to make an exit. So that's what I have on religious trauma. Now it is time for the news, the century-old news. And this comes from the Washington Times, the National Daily, April 15th, 1922. And the biggest headlines include may sell oysters liquor to pay debts. Next is spiritism is blamed for poison tragedy. And lastly, of the big headlines, it says jailed divorce foe appeals. So I wanted to look more closely at the poison story, and the closest that I found was the subheading that read suicide said to bar widow from mate in spirit land. So there was this guy, and his name was Sir Anthony Conan Doyle, who was a novelist. And he painted heaven, quote, in such attractive terms that at least one person decided to go there at once. So then the piece goes on to talk about how he said the opposite of that. He was like, no, suicide is a desperate and serious offense, denying that his involvement had anything to do with the suicide. Weird how that was somewhat related to what I talked about today. But okay, that's all the news I have for today. Short, sweet, simple, and slightly related to the topic. So if you want to support the show, click the button on my website. And remember, I really appreciate all of you simply for existing.